Hello, everybody. My name's Katrice Horsley, and I'm here to welcome you to the new series of little movies that I'm making. And this series is called Katrice Horsley's Secrets of Storytelling. So, I've been a storyteller and a person who has been using stories for the past 30 years. I'm the former National Storytelling Laureate of the United Kingdom, and I have performed all around the world at international storytelling festivals, as well as developed training around storytelling. And I suppose my first passion has always been training, communication, and connection. And what I found when I became involved in storytelling, and that's when I lived in Ghana, I lived in Ghana in West Africa for 6 years. What I found is one of the strongest ways that we can connect with people and communicate effectively is through using story. So, this series is all about that. And the first theme for this series, The Secrets of Storytelling, with me, Katrice Horsley, is going to focus on the brain. And there are going to be three little episodes linked into the brain. And the first one is all about chemicals. What chemicals are released when we hear stories and tell stories, and how do they impact on behavior? So, I know that sometimes I have thought to myself, don't tell me all the details. I just want to believe in the magic. If somebody wants to explain to me something to do with physics, sometimes I've pushed away from it because I just want to see the flower petals open in a certain way or the trees move in this. Don't tell me the details. And I know that sometimes storytellers have told me that. They know that stories are powerful. They know that they have an impact. But some storytellers will say, don't tell me why, it will spoil the magic. But one thing that I have found is that when I actually research more, and when I have looked at quantum physics, it has actually increased my amazement and my wonder. So I want these facts to increase your wonder and amazement with regards to storytelling as well. We have always known that stories can engage, influence, teach, and inspire people. But we never really knew why. Now, some of the latest research shows that facts are 20 times more likely to be recalled if they are put into a story. And that comes from a guy called Jerome Bruner. Can you tell I've written his name on the back of this? Who's a psychologist and who is mentioned in the Harvard Business Review with regards to storytelling and its power. So let me say that again. Facts are 20 times more likely to be recalled if they are put into a story. Now, why is that? And why do stories engage, influence, teach, and inspire? Well, when we listen to stories, our brain secretes certain hormones. And I'm not going to talk about every single one, but I'm going to talk about the main three chemicals, hormones that are released from our brain when we listen to stories. So, the first one, I'm going to rearrange the order here, is cortisol. And cortisol is known as the stress hormone, and it allows us to focus our attention. And it's the hormone that's responsible for the fight or freeze reaction. Although I've just found out that the research about that fight, flight, or freeze was actually slightly skewed because it only involved men. And another reaction has been found, which is nest and nurture. But that's another thing for another day. Cortisol is responsible for the fight, flight, and freeze response, responsible for us being able to concentrate in high stress situations. Now, if we have too much cortisol flooding our brains, it actually goes from adaptive to maladaptive. But within a story, we are rarely hit by a tsunami of cortisol. But the story does secrete enough to help us focus our attention. That's the first one. The second one is dopamine. And dopamine is the pleasure hormone, and it motivates us towards a goal. And for me, I always think of it as the cream cake hormone. I do quite like cream cakes. And if I have been on a diet or trying to lose weight, I can think of that cream cake that I will allow myself at the end of the week. And when I eat that cream cake, deliciousness, and I get a surge of dopamine. And we also have that when we listen to stories. And that surge of that pleasure hormone helps to keep us engaged in the story. And the third one is what's called the cuddle hormone. It's known as oxytocin, and it promotes empathy and trust and intimacy. And we tend to secrete big surges of it when we orgasm or when, as women, we breastfeed. And it bonds us to our partners or our babies. So that is also released when we listen to stories and when we tell stories. And that promotes this feeling of togetherness and of connectedness. This research has been around for some years now. Some of it was done at Emory, some of it has been done at Harvard Center for the Child. And I will put links in the video so that if you want to go ahead and research it, you can. But you might be thinking, well, what does this mean to us if we want to teach or train or develop our organizations, or if we are going to give the yearly financial review? If you can include some stories about perhaps a threat that you had to overcome and how that one team managed to overcome it, and that meant that the figures for that first quarter or that last quarter went into the black rather than staying in the red. If you couch it in terms of a story, you make your employees or your pupils more engaged, more able to feel together with the rest of their team, and also more able to remember the information that you've given them. Now, I would say that's not a bad thing. And finally, when it comes to chemicals and what happens in our brains when we listen to stories, I want to talk about this: visualization. When we listen to stories, many of us will tend to visualize the story happening to us. Almost like we can see it. And if we're reading a story, quite often we will make up how the characters look if we're not given enough description. Or we're so immersed in the story, especially if we're reading the story, that we can't hear somebody speaking to us. And it's almost like we're inhabiting the world of the story. It is alive to us. That's if we're literate, if we're fully literate, we can do that. And if we're listening to a story, it can be just 10 people and they will all perhaps see different characters or different backgrounds to the story, but they will visualize the story. And the sports psychologist Terry Orlick in 1980 said visualization, performance imagery, is one of the most important things in athletes becoming successful in their sport. The ability to visualize yourself succeeding and how you succeed is absolutely imperative and makes the difference between those that do well and those that become champions. I want you to think of that for a second. I want you to think of how often you might use stories to help the people you work with or yourself imagine themselves, yourself, in a different future, one that they want to inhabit, in a different self, one that they want to be. Stories are not entertainment alone, though that would be enough reason. They are an incredible way of enabling us to inhabit different worlds and different versions of ourselves and choose the ones we want to be. So I hope that first little lesson, all about the chemicals involved and released when we listen to stories, makes you curious about listening to more. The next one will come out next week, and it will all be about empathy. And of course, we're going to mention that lovely cuddle hormone, oxytocin, as we talk about empathy next week. I look forward to, well, not seeing you then, but being with you then. Take care. Bye bye for now. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember to subscribe to the channel. Just press the button. I'm trying to get my finger in the right place, just down there. Press the button down there somewhere. Bye bye.